It was a cold evening, the streets were quiet, and the wind blew dust across the sidewalks. People were locking their shops and hurrying home. Everything seemed normal until the sound of running footsteps broke the silence. 2 police officers chased a man down a narrow alley. Their radios crackled with noise. One officer shouted, "Stop! You're under arrest." The man didn't run fast. He didn't look scared. He moved quickly but calmly, like someone who knew where he was going. His clothes were clean, his face sharp, his eyes focused. He wasn't like the usual suspects, but still, he ran out at the end of the alley. He stopped. He turned slowly, raised his hands, and said, "You've made a mistake." Officer Dean, tall and strict, pointed his gun, hands on the wall. "Now." The man obeyed. Officer Ray, younger and nervous, searched the man. No weapons, no wallet, no ID, nothing illegal. Dean frowned. "Why were you running?" The man looked him in the eye. "I wasn't running from you. I was following someone." "Don't lie. You match the description," Dean said. "Male, brown coat, black shoes, dark cap." The man looked down at his clothes and smiled sadly. "I guess I should have worn something else today." Dean cuffed him. "You can talk at the station." People gathered at the entrance of the alley, watching the scene. Some whispered, others took out phones. A few shook their heads. "Why are they arresting him?" one woman asked. He didn't even resist. Ray noticed something odd. The man's hands were calm. Too calm. His face wasn't afraid. He looked more like someone who had seen this before. Many times. As they walked him to the patrol car, the man looked at Ray and said, "You're new, aren't you?" Ray blinked. "What? You haven't been on the force long. I can tell." Ray stared at him. "How do you know that?" The man just smiled and didn't answer. At the station, they put him in the questioning room, a small space with 1 table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner. The man sat quietly, looking at the wall. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask for water. He just waited. Outside the room, Ray watched through the glass. "He doesn't seem like a criminal," Dean replied. "That's what they want you to think. The smart ones are always calm." Ray shook his head. "There's something about him. His face looks familiar." Dean looked at the man again. "Now that you say it, he does look familiar." Ray turned to the computer and began searching. Old police files. Photo after photo flashed on the screen. Missing persons, old officers, past suspects. Suddenly, he stopped. "Dean, come here. Look at this." Dean leaned over. On the screen was a photo. A man in a police uniform, standing next to a boy, holding a medal. The man was smiling proudly. "It's him," Ray said. "It's the guy we arrested." Dean's eyes widened. "That's Daniel Cole. He was one of us." Ray scrolled down the file. Officer Daniel Cole, missing. No contact in 7 years. Last seen after his partner's death in a failed undercover mission. Believed to be in hiding or dead. Case closed. Dean whispered. "I remember now. He disappeared after that tragedy. People said he ran away. Some said he was framed." Ray looked through the glass again. Why would he be back now? And why near a robbery? Dean didn't answer. He walked into the questioning room. Daniel looked up slowly. "Took you long enough." Dean sat across from him. "Why are you here?" Daniel leaned forward. "Because something terrible is happening, and you're all chasing the wrong man." Dean narrowed his eyes. "You vanished for 7 years. People thought you were dead, or worse." "I had to disappear," Daniel said. "If I stayed, I would have been killed, just like my partner." Ray entered the room and sat beside Dean. Daniel looked at him and said, "You remind me of me. Fresh, still hopeful. Be careful. Not everything in this department is clean." Dean slammed his hand on the table. "Stop playing games. Why were you at the robbery scene?" Daniel looked serious now. "I was following someone, a man I've been tracking for months. He's involved in child trafficking. The robbery was just a distraction." Ray gasped. "Are you saying there's a bigger case behind this?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, much bigger, and I need your help." Dean stood up. "You expect us to believe a ghost cop with no badge, no ID, no proof?" Daniel's voice was calm. "Call Chief Morgan. He'll believe me." Ray looked at Dean. "Should we?" Dean hesitated, then walked out and picked up the phone. Back in the room, Daniel looked at the camera in the corner and whispered, "I'm sorry I had to disappear, but I never stopped protecting people, not for 1 second." Moments later, the station door opened. Chief Morgan walked in, old and tired but still sharp. Dean led him to the glass window. The chief stared through the glass. His mouth opened slightly. His eyes welled up. "It's him," he whispered. "It's Daniel." Dean frowned. "You sure?" Chief Morgan nodded slowly. "He saved my daughter's life." Inside the room, Daniel sat quietly, hands still cuffed. But something had changed. Outside, the officers were no longer looking at a suspect. They were looking at a mystery, a fallen hero, a man with secrets. And in that moment, they all realized they had arrested the wrong man, and they were about to find out the truth. It was bigger than they ever imagined. The room fell silent. As Chief Morgan stepped inside, he looked at Daniel for a long moment, eyes wide with disbelief, heart pounding like a distant drum. It had been 7 years. 7 long years of rumors, dead ends, and unanswered questions. Yet here Daniel sat, handcuffed like a criminal, staring back at him with calm eyes. Everyone out, the chief said softly but firmly. Officers Dean and Ray left the room without a word. The door clicked shut. Now it was just the two of them, one man from the past, the other holding the future in his hands. Chief Morgan slowly walked to the chair across from Daniel and sat down. I thought you were dead. Daniel gave a tired smile. A part of me was. I searched for you, Morgan said. We all did. After what happened with Officer Kyle, the department was torn apart. Some said you vanished to protect yourself. Others, they thought you were hiding something. Daniel's eyes darkened. I was protecting something. The truth. The chief leaned forward. Then tell me everything. Daniel took a deep breath, as if pulling memories from deep within. 7 years ago, Kyle and I were working undercover. There was a gang operating from inside the city. Drug dealing, weapons, even child trafficking. Kyle got too close. He found something big, but before he could report it, he was killed. Chief Morgan whispered, and they blamed you. Daniel nodded. They said I set him up, said I was working with the gang. I had no proof to defend myself, and where someone inside the department was feeding them information. The chief's face turned pale. A mole. Yes, Daniel said. Someone in uniform. That's why I left. I knew if I stayed, I'd be next. But I couldn't just walk away from what Kyle died for. So I went underground. I followed the trail. And now ... I'm back. Because the man I've been tracking, he's here again, in this town. The chief stood up, pacing now. Do you know his name? I know his face, Daniel replied. He uses different names, but his latest one is Victor Hale. And the robbery your officers responded to last night, it was staged. Victor used it to create chaos and disappear again. But I saw him. That's why I was there. Chief Morgan stopped pacing. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I didn't know who I could trust, Daniel said. I still don't. Morgan nodded slowly. You were right to be careful. Daniel leaned in. I need access to files. Old cases? Missing kids from the past 3 years. Victor leaves a pattern. He moves in circles. And I think he has another child. The chief's hands trembled slightly. Another child. Yes, a boy. 8 or 9. I saw him once, a week. I go scared, holding Victor's hand like a prisoner. I couldn't save him then, but I will now. Morgan looked at the cuffs on Daniel's wrists and unlocked them without a word. You're not a suspect anymore. You're back where you belong. Daniel rubbed his wrists and stood slowly. Thank you. Outside the room, officers Dean and Ray watched through the glass. Ray leaned toward. Dean, did you hear that? A child? A missing boy? Dean frowned. If this is true, then we were chasing the wrong man last night. Ray's voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe we were chasing a ghost who came back to finish what he started. Later that night, Daniel sat in front of a computer in the records room. Files surrounded him, dozens of faces, children missing, parents still hoping, cases forgotten. Claire, a young officer working with missing persons, joined him quietly. You think one of these kids is the one you saw? She asked. Daniel nodded. He had a scar above his left eye. Thin, short hair. About 9. I've seen that face before. Somewhere in these files. Hours passed. Coffee cups piled up. Eyes grew tired, but then Daniel froze. This one, he whispered. Liam Turner, age 9, missing for 3 months. Claire pulled the file. Reported missing from a group. Home outside the city. Last seen with a man matching Victor's general description. Daniel's heart pounded. That's him. That's the boy. Suddenly a sharp knock on the glass door startled them. It was Officer Dean. We've got something, Dean said. Surveillance footage from last night. 2 blocks away from the robbery. They followed Dean to the tech room. The video was grainy but clear enough. A man, tall, in a black coat, was walking with a small boy beside him. The boy looked nervous, scared. He kept looking around. Daniel pointed. That's Victor, and that's Liam. The footage showed them walking toward an old bus station. They didn't take a car, Ray said. They took a bus. Daniel stepped closer to the screen. Pause. Zoom in. The road stretched long and quiet, the only sound coming from the soft hum of tires against the pavement. Daniel sat in the back seat of the lead car, eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The abandoned rest stop was still a few miles ahead. His heart beat faster with every turn of the wheels. The last time he had been this close to Victor, it had ended in tragedy. He couldn't let that happen again. Ray drove with steady hands, glancing at the GPS screen while Dean sat in the passenger seat, loading his weapon. You really think he's there? Ray asked. Daniel nodded. Victor doesn't trust cities. He needs places off the radar. That rest stop gives him cover, space, and no attention. It's exactly where he'd hide. Dean looked back. We don't know how many men he has with him. I don't care if it's 10 or 20. Daniel said, his voice sharp. That boy is in there. I saw the fear in his eyes. We can't wait. 10 minutes later, the convoy of cars pulled to a stop just off the main road. The rest stop looked dead. No lights, no movement, just an old building with boarded windows and a broken sign hanging by a thread. Behind it, a small garage sat. In silence, its metal door slightly open. The chief gave orders in a low voice. 2 teams, quiet entry. No shots unless absolutely necessary. We want that boy safe. Daniel joined Team 1. They approached from the front, weapons drawn. The air was heavy, every footstep quiet on the gravel. As they neared the door, Daniel raised his hand, signaling everyone to stop. He leaned in, listened. Faint voices. A child's cough, he motioned to the others. On 3, 1, 2, 3, the door burst open. Flashlights cut through the dark. Police hands where we can see them. 2 men scrambled from the back of the room. One raised a gun. A loud shot echoed through the space as Dean fired, hitting the man in the shoulder. He fell, groaning. The second man tried to run, but Ray tackled him to the ground. Daniel pushed through the room, past old crates and dusty chairs, and burst into the garage. There, in the far corner, sat a small boy curled up, eyes wide with fear. It was Liam. Daniel dropped to his knees and spoke gently. Liam, my name is Daniel. I'm here to take you home. Liam didn't move at first. Then slowly he reached out his hand. Daniel picked him up, held him tight. You're safe. Now, I promise. But before he could turn, a slow clap echoed from the shadows. Well done, Daniel, a voice said. Cold, familiar. Victor stepped forward from the back, holding a gun pointed directly at Daniel. I must admit, Victor said, I didn't expect you to find me so fast. Daniel stepped in front of Liam. It's over, Victor. Let him go. Victor smirked. Funny, that's what your partner said all those years ago, right before I shot him. Daniel's jaw clenched. His hand tightened around Liam's back. You don't have to do this, Daniel said, voice calm. You're surrounded. You can't get out of here. Victor laughed. I always find a way. At that moment, Claire appeared at the side door, weapon aimed. Drop it. Victor turned his head slightly. Just enough. Daniel moved fast. He kicked a metal bucket toward Victor's feet and lunged. The gun fired once, missed. Daniel tackled him to the ground. Claire rushed forward and cuffed Victor's hands while he struggled. Got him. Daniel stood up, breathing hard. Liam clung to his leg, eyes filled with tears but safe. Victor glared at Daniel from the floor. You think you've won? You think taking me down will change anything? Daniel stared at him. No, but it'll give that boy a chance to grow up free. Victor snarled as he was dragged away. Outside, the team regrouped. Paramedics checked Liam while officers searched the rest stop. Inside, they found documents, photos, names, lists, a full operation. The files Victor had been guarding were enough to expose years of trafficking activity. The chief looked at Daniel. You did it? Daniel shook his head. We did it? Liam sat beside Claire, holding a bottle of water, shivering slightly. She smiled at him. You're really brave, you know that? Liam looked at her, then at Daniel. Is he my uncle? Claire looked confused. What? Liam stood up, walked to Daniel, and said quietly, my mom. She told me if anything ever happened to her, someone named Daniel would come for me. Daniel knelt down, his eyes softened. Your mom was my best friend. We were partners. She made me promise I'd protect you, and I will, always. Liam hugged him tight. Ray walked over, smiling. You've got a big heart, man. Daniel stood, still holding the boy. I just kept my promise. The next morning, the news spread fast. Major human trafficking ring exposed after former officer reappears. Victor Hale's arrest made headlines. But what the media didn't know was the silent promise Daniel had kept alive for 7 long years. Back at the station, Daniel sat with Liam beside him. Chief Morgan handed him a small badge. You earned this back, he said. Daniel looked at it for a long time. Then he gently placed it on the desk. Thank you, but I think I've served in my own way. Morgan nodded. Whatever you choose, you've made this department proud again. Liam leaned against Daniel's arm. Safe at last. Outside, the sun was rising. The same world, but somehow different now. Brighter. Daniel looked down at Liam and smiled. Ready to go home? Liam nodded. With you? Daniel nodded. Always. And as they walked out of the station, side by side, one thing was clear. This wasn't just the end of a rescue. It was the beginning of something new. The days that followed felt like a dream to Daniel. After years in the shadows, avoiding cameras, skipping towns, hiding from a system that once betrayed him, he was finally walking in daylight again with nothing to fear. But the peace was short-lived. Inside the station, new information was pouring in. The files found in the rest stop were darker than anyone expected. Daniel sat with Chief Morgan and Officer Claire in the evidence room. Papers spread out across the table. Photos of children, adoption files, fake medical records, even city documents signed with forged seals. Claire looked pale. These aren't just trafficking records. This is a network, a system. It's organized and protected. Chief Morgan leaned forward. We've uncovered one small part. Victor wasn't the leader. He was just one of the hands. Daniel rubbed his forehead. So there's more. Others still out there. Morgan nodded. And they're higher up than we thought. Someone gave Victor cover. Helped him escape justice 7 years ago. Possibly even helped frame you. Daniel stared at the file in front of him. A photo of his old partner Kyle, smiling in uniform. Then we need to find them. For Kyle. For every kid who disappeared. Outside, Liam played with a small toy car in the waiting room, his eyes watching every person who walked by. He still flinched at loud sounds, still looked over his shoulder. But around Daniel, he was starting to breathe easier. Ray joined them at the table. "You're going to want to see this," he said, holding a flash drive. He plugged it into the computer. A video loaded grainy footage from the abandoned rest stop's garage, taken from a hidden security camera. In the video, Victor paced the floor, speaking on the phone. Daniel turned up the volume. "We got the kid, just like you asked. But Cole's back." "Yeah, Daniel Cole. He's alive. I don't care what your files said. I saw him with my own eyes. He's digging, and he won't stop." There was a pause, and then Victor said something chilling. "I did what you wanted. I took the blame. I disappeared. But if he gets close again, I'm not taking the fall twice." Claire froze. He wasn't working alone. Morgan stood slowly. "We always suspected there was someone on the inside. Now we have proof." Daniel leaned closer. "Can we trace that call?" Ray nodded. "Already working on it. But the number was masked. It bounced through 5 fake accounts." Claire clicked through the files. "Wait, look at this." She pointed to a scanned document. "This foster home. Liam was placed here for only 2 weeks, and it's not on the state's official registry." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "That's a ghost home." "Exactly," she said. "It's a fake placement. No government worker ever checked on it. And Liam wasn't the only one. 4 other kids were sent there, all missing now." Morgan whispered, "How deep does this go?" Daniel stood. "I need to visit that home. It's abandoned," Claire said. "Hasn't been active for months. I still want to see it." Later that day, they drove through the countryside until they reached a lonely house at the end of a gravel road. The grass was overgrown. The windows were cracked. It looked like no child had ever belonged there. Daniel stepped inside first. The floor creaked under his boots. The air smelled of dust and damp wood. Toys lay scattered on the floor untouched, fake, placed only for show. Claire walked into a small back room. She stopped suddenly. "Daniel, come here." He entered and found a wall covered in names, tiny handwriting, like children marking their presence. Some names were crossed out. Others were written with shaky letters. At the bottom corner was one name, Liam. Daniel touched it gently. He was here. Claire found a small notebook hidden behind the bed frame. Inside were meal logs, medical notes, dates, everything a real foster home would track. But the names of the caregivers were all aliases. Daniel turned to a page near the back and froze. Written in red ink, "Delivered 2 DF payment on arrival." He looked up DF initials. "Someone in charge." Claire's voice trembled. "We need to find out who DF is. If they were paying for these kids, we're dealing with something much bigger." Back at the station, the team worked late into the night. Files were compared, names cross-checked, voices analyzed. Ray returned with an update. "We found a bank trail, a payment to one of Victor's shell accounts. It came from a private law firm downtown." The sun dipped behind the trees as Daniel and Claire drove deep into the woods. Following the coordinates Ellen had written down, the paved road had ended 20 minutes ago, and now they were moving slowly along a bumpy dirt path covered with fallen leaves and low-hanging branches. Silence filled the car, except for the steady crunch of gravel beneath the tires. Daniel stared ahead, his hands tight on the wheel. If Finch is hiding here, it means he's scared. That means he knows someone's coming for him. Claire nodded. Or someone already tried. They reached a clearing. In the center stood a small wooden cabin, quiet and still. The windows were dark, the porch covered in dust and leaves. No lights, no smoke, no movement. Claire unbuckled her seatbelt. "You think he's inside? We're about to find out," Daniel said, stepping out and reaching for his weapon. They approached. Slowly, Daniel knocked on the door. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. Claire stepped around the side of the cabin, looking for another way in. A few minutes later, she returned with a rusted key she found hidden beneath a loose stone on the porch. Daniel unlocked the door and pushed it open. Inside, the cabin smelled of old wood and mold. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Papers were scattered across a table, and a cold cup of tea sat untouched beside an empty chair. Daniel moved quickly, checking the rooms. Clear. Claire picked up a crumpled newspaper. The date was 3 days ago. He was here recently. Daniel spotted a safe hidden behind a wooden panel. "Help me with this." They forced the panel open and revealed a small metal safe. Locked. Claire opened her bag. "I've got tools." While she worked on the safe, Daniel flipped through the documents on the table. Most of them were fake business receipts and shredded notes. One page caught his attention. It was a list of names. Some were crossed out, others had numbers next to them. He held the paper up. "This is a client list. Code names and payment figures." Claire cracked the safe. Inside, they found a black leather notebook, a flash drive, and a silver gun. Daniel ignored the weapon and grabbed the notebook. Inside were handwritten notes, dates, initials, addresses, evidence. Claire held up the flash drive. "Let's hope this has what we need." Suddenly, a noise outside made them freeze. A twig snapped. Daniel motioned for Claire to stay low. He crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. A black SUV had pulled into the clearing. 2 men stepped out, dressed in plain clothes but holding rifles. "They're not police," Daniel whispered. They're here for Finchore to clean up. Claire whispered. What do? We hide, then we follow. They crouched behind a heavy cabinet. Footsteps echoed on the porch. The front door creaked open. A voice spoke. Clear the place. Grab everything. Burn it if you have to. The men moved through the cabin, checking drawers, flipping furniture, missing the hidden safe and the evidence Claire had already tucked into her bag. One of the men walked into the back room. No sign of him, the other replied. He's probably already gone, but take the laptop. Moments later, the men returned to the SUV and drove off. The forest grew silent again. Daniel and Claire stood slowly, both tense. They didn't know we were here, Claire said. Daniel looked at the mess left behind. But they knew where Finch was hiding, which means he didn't disappear on his own. He was either taken or silenced. Claire held up the flash drive. We need to get this back to the station before they realize what they missed. That night, back at the station, Ray and the tech team loaded the flash drive. What they found was shocking. Videos, phone calls, email logs, and even contracts between Finch and various shell companies. But one file stood out. A recording labeled DF_final. Daniel clicked play. Finch's voice filled the room. He sounded tired, panicked. If you're watching this, I'm either dead or running. I didn't start this. I just did what I was told. These people. They're not just criminals. They're judges, lawyers, cops, even child service agents. I kept records because I was scared. I thought if I had proof, they'd leave me alone. He paused, but when they found out I was thinking of leaving, everything changed. I saw what they did to others. Two families who asked questions. They don't forgive. They erase. He gave a shaky sigh. There's a woman, Olivia Marks. She runs a fake child therapy center near the east side. That's where they process the kids before they're shipped out. If you want to stop this, you start with her. The video ended. Claire stood slowly. That's our next step, Ray added. I can pull her file, but if Finch is telling the truth, she might already be in hiding. Daniel looked at Chief Morgan. We need a warrant. We need eyes on that building. Morgan nodded. I'll make the call. Over the next few hours, Claire and Ray prepared everything. Maps, blueprints, staff photos. Olivia Marks had a clean public record, almost to clean. The center had never been inspected. No complaints. No children ever returned. At sunrise. The team gathered outside the building. From the outside, the therapy center looked harmless. A white fence, bright flowers, a large colorful sign that read, Bright Paths Counseling. But Daniel's gut told him otherwise. They watched for hours. A delivery van came and went. A black sedan parked in the rear lot and left 20 minutes later. No children ever entered or exited. At noon, the judge called. The warrant was approved. Daniel led the team to the front door. Officers surrounded the back. Claire knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Louder. Finally, a woman in her 40s opened the door, smiling. Hello, how can I help? Daniel held up his badge. Police, step aside. Her smile vanished. Officers poured into the building. Inside, what they found was horrifying. Behind a locked hallway, past fake counseling rooms and fake patient files, was a hidden door, down a staircase. They discovered a basement filled with small rooms, metal beds, surveillance cameras, and dozens of bags packed with children's clothes. Claire gasped. We're ready to move more kids. No children were present. But it was clear, this was a transfer site. Daniel turned to the woman. Where are the kids? She refused to answer, but her face said everything. The center was shut down. Olivia was arrested. The news hit every screen in the city. But Daniel knew this wasn't the end. It was only the next chapter in a war against something deeper. And whoever was still pulling the strings had just lost another hiding place. The news about Bright Paths Counseling spread like wildfire. By evening, media vans crowded outside the station, reporters shouting questions no one dared to answer yet. Inside, the mood was tense. Officers shuffled between phone calls, paperwork, and interrogations. But Daniel didn't care about the chaos. He was focused on the puzzle that still wasn't finished. He stood in the observation room, watching through the one-way mirror as Olivia Marks sat quietly in the interrogation chair. Her face was blank, her hands folded neatly. She didn't look like a criminal. She looked like a school principal, calm, cold, and calculating. Claire stepped beside him. She hasn't said a word, not even to ask for a lawyer. Daniel stared at her. She's waiting. For what? For someone to come clean up her mess? Daniel walked into the room. The door clicked behind him. Olivia looked up, expression unchanged. Miss Marks, Daniel said as he sat across from her, you've got quite the operation. Therapy center on the outside, trafficking hub underneath. She didn't respond. We've got everything. Video, logs, notes, names, Finch's, confession, all pointing at you. Still no answer. Daniel leaned forward. We found something else. Files hidden in your computer. Dozens of them, all marked with one word, Redbirds. Want to tell me what that means? A small flicker crossed her eyes. The first sign of a reaction, but she stayed silent. Daniel pressed on. Redbirds is a code, isn't it? A name, a group. Maybe the people who gave you protection, who gave Victor cover, who helped silence Kyle. Her jaw clenched slightly. Daniel kept his voice calm. You're not the boss. You're a worker. Just like Victor. Just like Finch. But guess what? They're gone. He's arrested. Finch disappeared. Probably dead. And you're sitting here, alone. She stared at the table, her fingers tapping slowly. I can help you, Daniel said. I can get you a deal. But only if you give me something. A name, a lead, anything. Finally she looked up. Her voice was cold. They'll kill me. Daniel didn't blink. They'll kill everyone if you don't help stop them. Silence again. Then, quietly, she said, there's a house, in the mountains. Not on the maps. No address. Just a number 12. That's all they call it. 12. Daniel leaned in. Who's there? She whispered. Children. Later that night, the team gathered in the operations room. The house Olivia described wasn't easy to trace. It wasn't registered, didn't exist in county records, and had no power or water bills. But with satellite maps and a little digging, Claire found it a structure hidden deep in the Pine Ridge forest. Surrounded by old trees and rough terrain. No nearby homes, no cell coverage, no roads. Chief Morgan gave the green light. This could be it. We'll move at dawn. The next morning, just before sunrise, a team of 8 officers moved out. Daniel rode in the lead vehicle, silent, alert, every muscle tense. As they neared the edge of the forest, the trucks stopped. The rest of the journey had to be on foot. It was too quiet. Birds didn't chirp, wind didn't blow. Everything felt wrong. They hiked for 40 minutes before the trees opened into a small clearing. There it was, House 12. It wasn't big, just a simple wooden structure with a tin roof and one broken window. Daniel didn't sleep that night. The note played over and over in his head. You're getting close, but it's not over. He stared at the photo of himself and Kyle, remembering the last time they laughed together. So much had happened, since then lies betrayal, disappearances, but now, everything was falling into place. Still, there was one question he couldn't ignore. Who left the note? The next morning he met Claire in the evidence room. She was already reviewing the files they recovered from House 12. Each child's name matched reports from families who had begged the system for help and were ignored. These kids were processed like numbers, Claire said quietly. Moved from one place to another, with no records, no oversight. It's like the system helped them disappear. Daniel nodded. We need to find who's controlling this now. Olivia was just one link. Finch was another. But there's still someone above them. Someone powerful. And someone who knew Kyle. Claire looked up. You think the man who left that note knew Kyle too? I don't just think so, Daniel said, pulling something from his pocket. I know so. He placed the crumpled note on the table, next to an old birthday card Kyle had once written him years ago. The handwriting was nearly identical. Claire leaned in. You think Kyle's alive? Daniel's voice dropped. What if he never died that night? What if the reports were fake? But the body, they never found it. Just blood, a burnt badge, and a few bones. No DNA match. I never believed he was gone. And now this. Note appears, with his handwriting. Claire stared at the paper, stunned. If he's alive, he could be the key to everything. Ray burst into the room, breathless. We got something. One of the kids finally opened up. Daniel and Claire followed him to the interview room, where a small boy, around 7, sat with a social worker. The boy glanced up nervously as Daniel entered. Are you Daniel? Daniel knelt beside him. Yes, I am. The boy whispered. The man with the gray coat said you were the only one we could trust. Daniel's heart pounded. Did he say his name? The boy shook his head. He just said he used to be a hero, that he worked with the police, but bad people hurt him. He told us to hide if we ever heard gunshots. Claire looked at Daniel. A gray coat? That's what Kyle wore on his last undercover mission, Ray added. And get this, 2 of the kids described a hidden place in the mountains, not a house. A bunker. Daniel stood. The boy pointed to a drawing he had made earlier. It was rough, drawn with crayons, but Daniel recognized the terrain. It was near the old Pine Rock Dam, a location Daniel and Kyle had visited once during a training mission. Let's move, Daniel said. We're going there now. An hour later, Daniel, Claire, Ray, and a small team hiked through the forest behind the dam. The area had long been shut down, no foot traffic, no cameras, no road signs. But Daniel remembered the way. Eventually, they reached a cliffside covered in brush and vines. Daniel stopped. Here, behind this wall, they cleared the overgrowth and uncovered a metal door, rusted but still sealed tight. Claire checked it. It's locked from the inside. Daniel called out, Kyle, if you're in there, it's me, Daniel. No answer. Then, the sound of movement. A bolt slid open. Slowly, the door creaked open just enough to reveal a pair of tired, sharp eyes. Kyle, older, thinner, bearded, but still him. Daniel took a shaky breath. You're alive. Kyle opened the door wider, stepping out into the light. You found me. Claire stared in shock. This can't be real. Kyle looked at her, then back to Daniel. You have no idea how deep this goes. They hugged quick, tight, like brothers who had lost too much time. Back inside the bunker, Kyle explained everything. How he faked his death the night he uncovered the truth. How someone high in the department ordered his silence. how Finch helped him disappear in exchange for protection, how he'd spent years tracking the real players from the shadows. He pulled out a worn journal. I've kept notes on every move they made, every child they took, every name involved. Judges, CEOs, charity leaders, even a deputy commissioner. Daniel opened the book. It was all there, pages and pages of evidence. Some of the same names Olivia Marks had mentioned. Others were new. Claire whispered, "If this gets out, half the city will fall." Kyle nodded. "That's why they kept me hidden. I became the ghost they feared." Daniel looked at him. "You saved those kids. All this time, you never stopped." Kyle smiled sadly. "Neither did you." Back at the station, the journal caused a storm. The DA was called in. The governor got involved. Arrests were made quietly at first, but they spread fast. One by one, people who had seemed untouchable were being dragged into the light. Claire watched it unfold. "They're going down. All of them," Ray added. "But we're not done yet," Daniel agreed. "No, this was never just about stopping bad people. It's about rebuilding what they broke." He looked at Kyle, who now stood beside Liam at the station window. "I think we just started something bigger," Daniel said. Claire smiled. "Something better," Daniel nodded. "We didn't just bring the truth back, we brought hope with it." And for the first time in years, the station felt like a place of justice again. But they all knew the city skyline glowed golden in the evening light, casting long shadows across the streets that had once held so many secrets. Inside the station, the mood was different, quieter, heavier, but with a strange sense of hope lingering beneath it all. Officers walked with more purpose now. Citizens had started leaving flowers at the entrance, and families once silenced were finally speaking out. Daniel stood at the window, watching Liam draw pictures in the visitor room. The boy laughed softly as Kyle helped him sketch a dog, both of them kneeling beside a piece of white paper on the floor. It was the kind of moment Daniel had fought so hard to protect, peaceful, innocent, real. Claire entered, holding a thick folder. Another 27 names came through. Most of them confirmed connections to the Redbirds network. Some have already skipped town. Daniel took the file and flipped through it. Names of powerful people, judges, businessmen, former politicians, all once seen as untouchable. Now exposed, they're running scared, Claire said. "They should be," Daniel replied. Kyle entered, brushing dust off his jacket. "I've been working on tracing bank transfers. Some of these shell accounts connect to international child rings, Mexico, Turkey, Eastern Europe. It's not just a local operation, it's global." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Then we'll bring it all down, no matter how far it goes." Claire hesitated. "There's something else you need to see." She handed him a new file. Inside was a picture taken just hours ago by a security camera. At a private airstrip outside the city, it showed a man boarding a jet, tall, clean-cut, a face Daniel hadn't seen in years. "Commissioner Rhodes," he said in disbelief. Claire nodded. "He was Kyle's superior, the one who declared him dead, the one who buried the case. He's running." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to catch him before that plane takes off." Within minutes, the team was in motion. Sirens off, headlights dimmed, 4 black SUVs raced toward the airstrip. The sun was almost gone, the sky painted with streaks of violet and fire. Daniel sat beside Kyle in the back seat, the weight of 7 years pressing down on both of them. "Rhodes was the one who shut me down," Kyle said. "He told me to back off, said the case was above my pay grade. Then 2 nights later, they staged my death." Daniel clenched his fists. "He betrayed all of us." Claire's voice came through the radio. 10 minutes out, the jet hasn't left yet." Security at the airstrip. A sleek private jet sat idle on the tarmac, its engine humming. 2 bodyguards stood nearby, scanning the horizon. Rhodes was already walking toward the stairs. Daniel and Kyle moved fast. Claire came from the opposite side with 2 officers. "Police," Daniel shouted. "Step away from the plane." Rhodes turned, stunned for only a second before trying to board. But Kyle was faster. He tackled him from behind, bringing him down to the ground. The guards raised their weapons, but Ray and Claire were already there, disarming them in seconds. Daniel stood over Rhodes, breath heavy. "You tried to erase him. You tried to erase the truth." Rhodes coughed, struggling beneath Kyle's grip. "You don't know what you're playing with. These people, they're not people," Daniel snapped. "They're monsters, and your time is up." Back at the station, Rhodes was booked. Within an hour, the media got the story. Police commissioner arrested in connection to child trafficking network. The city exploded. News anchors called it the biggest corruption scandal in state history. Inside the interrogation room, Rhodes sat with a lawyer beside him, but it didn't matter. Daniel had the files, the accounts, the evidence. There was no escaping this time. Kyle watched from the other side of the glass. "I waited 7 years for this." Daniel nodded. "Now it's done." But Kyle didn't smile. His eyes held something else, pain maybe, or the weight of what could have been. "You going to stay?" Daniel asked him later, on the station rooftop as the sky turned black above them. Kyle shook his head. "I've been gone too long. People think I'm dead. Maybe it's better that way." Daniel frowned. "You helped save dozens of lives. You brought down an empire of evil. You should be honored." Kyle smiled faintly. This was never about recognition. It was about redemption. Daniel looked out over the city. What will you do? Disappear again? But this time, on my terms, I'll find more like them. More children trapped in darkness.